protests over tax hikes in Kenya have led to deadly confrontations. Police opened fire on demonstrators trying to storm the parliament in Nairobi. At least 5 people were killed, dozens were injured. The City Hall and Parliament set ablaze, sending legislators fleeing. In a televised address, Kenyan President William Ruto did not address the bill, but said the protests had been infiltrated and hijacked by criminals.
We must isolate crime from democratic expression and separate criminals from people exercising the freedom of expression and divergent opinion.
Despite the chaos, the parliament approved the tax bill. Lawmakers must now send the bill to the president for his signature. Let's turn to Jane Munga for some insight into those deadly protests. She's a fellow for the Africa program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Jane, are you surprised how quickly things turned chaotic and deadly? Loss of life, destruction of property, storming the parliament, police firing on protesters.
First, thank you, Asieh, for having me this evening to discuss this. And yes, to your question, I think we are all surprised. The situation escalated beyond what anybody could have imagined. The protests were called as peaceful. The demonstrators had gone to the street, mostly young people who are very vocal on the finance bill. But most and foremost, they came with a message of peace, and they wanted to reject the finance bill. So yes, it's a shocking day for the outcomes, and we are really concerned as how things evolved. But we hope that peace will be restored and calm will resolve back in Nairobi.
So Jane, talk about these unpopular taxes that are part of this finance bill. What does it mean for average Kenyans? Why is this so controversial, so divisive?
That's a very good question, and I think it goes to the root of why we have this protest. And I think we always have to remember why people are on the streets. And this began last week with a lot of young people saying that the tax increments that are called on this new finance bill are going to hurt the common person, or in Kenya we say the common mwananchi. This is already a populace that is already overburdened. First, they don't make much, they're young. As we know, Kenya has over 50% young people. Most of them are unemployed, or most of them are still in university. So when we talk about a tax increase on basic commodities as bread up to 16%, or hygiene products for females, or for basically other issues such as for fuel, even for car taxes. These are some of the basic hike in prices that a lot of people feel that are going to burden them, and it's going to go back to their pocket. So a lot of young people just want to say, no, we cannot do this. They don't feel that they participated in the process. They have tried to say no. They have tried to speak to their representatives. And so that's why they went to the streets to say that, look, this is our problem and we need to be heard.
So where do we go from this point on? It sounds like this thing is very close to being law, being signed by President Ruto. Is there room for compromise at this point? And Jane, did William Ruto have an alternative here? Could he have chosen another plan instead of this one?
I think, as it is always alternatives, I think leaders are called upon to dialogue, and the opportunity to dialogue is always open. He himself has said over the weekend that he was open to dialogue with the young people. However, the dialogues seem to have failed, because even as he calls for dialogue, the MPs or the members of parliament went ahead and did the second reading and passed this without any form of dialogue. So this is why I think people do not trust the process of dialogue at this point, and they're calling for 100% overhaul for people to reject the finance bill, and they feel that they don't have that space anymore. This is not to say that that room is not there. We hope that that moving forward, since we're having a lot of people speaking up, that maybe a channel will come forward for dialogue and for people to start saying, hey, let's sit in the table and see what we can do with some of the proposed amendments.
So Jane, finally, I have to ask you about comments that President Ruto made in addressing the country. He did not mention this controversial bill, but he did say these protests were hijacked by dangerous people, that these protests were infiltrated by criminals. I just want to get your reaction to that.
That statement has actually shocked most of us. It was unfortunate that the statements that we were hoping to hear, or I would have hoped to hear, would be first to address the issues that the young people were raising. When the statement came out after a whole day of silence from the government, came to almost to escalate instead of de-escalate the situation, because it now spoke of these young people as even using very extreme words as treasonous acts of violence, and that they will go after the criminals who instigated this. So it looks that there was some unfortunate use of words. We do hope tomorrow that there will be new dialogue that is imposed on the table, or young people are able to move forward. They have called for more protests on Thursday, and as they still want to be heard. They still believe, the young people still believe there's opportunity to dialogue. But unfortunately, as you have said it, the statements that came out of the president are seen as almost unfortunate and almost not reading the room to understand what the situation is. The people want to dialogue and want to be heard over the bill, and that was largely missing from his statement.
Well, we certainly appreciate your expertise on this topic. I have a feeling the story is not going away. Jane Munga, appreciate your insight.
Thank you very much.